UCL was back this week,
Oof.
and I know we spoke offline about how nostalgic it was to see it back, to hear the music and to see the Heineken sponsorship was a bit of a, that just does it for me. And I thought today we could open the show with a highlight each about the first match week gone in the Champions League.
Well, those advertisements are always kind of strange. The broadcaster is obliged to play those. They're UEFA sponsorship, so the broadcaster doesn't get any money for that. And they're always sort of strange. I love it when they've got like pre-rendered ones of fans watching in their living room and everybody, it looks really unnatural, like a paid actor, which of course they are. It's just sort of this weird like Sims 2 world of football fans. There's a little uncanny valley there. But my highlight from the Champions League was the throwback tie, which was Liverpool 3, AC Milan 2. It's back to one of the first Champions League finals I ever watched.
Yes.
Two of the first Champions League finals I ever watched in 2005 and then Milan's revenge in 2007. And they'd never actually played each other outside of those two games, which is bonkers if you think about it. I think about how long both of these clubs have been involved at the top level of European competition.
Yeah.
So this was a real treat for me, and we saw just an open, attacking, end-to-end game with a young Milan side sort of surviving in a baptism of fire before Jordan Henderson put his foot through a sumptuous half volley to win the game, and it was just a great morning. I just loved every second of that tie. So it was a great blend of a traditional powerhouse team versus a former powerhouse back on the stage for the first time in I think 7 or 8 years.
Long time since Milan has been on that stage. They're like, apart from Manchester United, they were the first team for me outside of like the Premier League that I was actually following closely. Maybe because the colours were similar, red and red, but beyond the aesthetics of the clubs, I think about Kaká, Paolo Maldini, Cafu, Dida, like all these players that are just, giants of the game, and obviously nice to see a club like Milan back at the very top.
100%. And I think there are some players in this team who have the potential to kick on and become real legends of the club. Sandro Tonali, Ismail Benacer, Teo Hernandez. I think Simon Kjaer has already established himself as a bit of a legend after the Euros and everything that happened there with Christian Eriksen, but he's just a giant and a real leader at the back. I really like Alexis Salamakers as well. I think he's highly underrated in the intelligence of his movement. It goes unnoticed by a lot of fans, but the real battle in this game was fought all the way down the same flank. It was the something's got to give kind of push and pull of Trent Alexander-Arnold always wanting to operate in the final third and Rafael Leao not wanting to track back. So the entire match was basically played down the same side, and I thought at some point somebody's got to give up and hold their position, but neither did. So it made this incredible battle where Liverpool would spam attacks down that side and get heaps of deliveries into the area, and Milan might cling on and spring a counter-attack down that flank as well. And I think a young Milan side, it was a baptism of fire for them, as I said. The first time they've really played in a match of that importance and against that level of opposition. So I think they acquitted themselves pretty well. I think Milan fans, despite the defeat, should be happy with what they saw from some of those young guys like Brahim Diaz, who really took the moment on.
Yeah, 100%. And I think the biggest question for Milan heading into this new season was obviously the departure of Donnarumma, whether Mike Maignan, I don't know how to pronounce his name, I hope that's right.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
Could kind of rise to the occasion. Big gloves to fill, but from what I've seen in Serie A, he's kind of settled into that number one goalkeeping spot, and I think that has helped calm things down, especially around the defensive side of Milan's game.
It's a very shrewd signing, and Milan, for all they would have wanted to keep Donnarumma, they couldn't afford to pay the wages he was asking for.
Shout out Raiola.
As one of my Milan supporting friends has said to me, they've replaced the former best keeper in Serie A with the new best keeper in Serie A. This is a very shrewd move, signing a player from a Ligue 1 winning Lille side. He had 21 clean sheets last season in Ligue 1, which is one short of the all-time record. Yeah, and the guy's just a fantastic shot stopper. And I'm surprised, actually, that Mo Salah has gotten away with just blasting every penalty without much thought for this long. He had some incredible, penalty streak where he hadn't missed one for so long.
Yeah.
And finally a goalkeeper picked the right way and got a glove on it. I've never thought his penalty technique was particularly refined, and I think that was finally exposed.
And for this Milan side, where do you think the ceiling is in their European adventure? Like you said, 7 years out of the Champions League. Now they're back. How far do you reckon they can take it?
I think a quarterfinal would be a big success for this side. And I think that's probably where they'll end up. It all depends on the draw. It's really difficult to know, who they're going to come up against in the next rounds if they finish second in this group, which they probably will. But I'm looking forward to watching them again. I think they play some really entertaining football. They're quite flexible tactically in the way they go about things, and they've got some real gems. I think having Zlatan Ibrahimovic miss this fixture really hurt them. And although Rebic scored, and he has a habit of scoring big goals, they weren't able to play on the front foot because they didn't have a player who could operate with his back to goal like Ibrahimovic does.
Yeah.
So having that option available, and they did bring on Olivier Giroud later in the game, which helped them a tad, I thought. But he didn't really have enough time to influence things. This team was set up to counter-attack, but they won't always play that way, which is important to note. When they come up against sides that will let them have the ball, I still think this Milan team is good enough to score goals.
Yeah, 100%. Well, my highlight of the Champions League is going to come out a bit of left field. It's a bit of an underdog story with a dark underbelly. Sheriff FC, the first Moldovan club to be in the Champions League, but obviously they have a little bit of a complicated history. They're not actually situated in Moldova, so people are questioning whether they are the first Moldovan club. They are located, and I have it written down because I don't know how to say it, but they're located in Tiraspol, which is the capital of a non-recognized country known as Transnistria.
Sounds like where Dracula comes from.
Yeah, a breakaway state which is located on the Moldovan-Ukrainian border. They have a bit of Russian sympathy. So the first game in the Champions League against Shakhtar Donetsk, who are obviously playing away from their usual home, there was the political element to the game, which I thought was an interesting backstory. But I don't want to talk too much about the politics because I find stories like this, small clubs out of small countries playing at the biggest stage, I think is a nice blueprint and a nice kind of glimpse for other clubs like Ferencváros, Midtjylland out of Denmark. These clubs that can only dream of the riches sometimes, but can see little case studies, as a way forward to the big stage. And I was really impressed by their performance. They have a striker, Adama Traore, who is more efficient than the Adama Traore that is currently in the Premier League. And they played kind of just brave football, and I was really, really impressed for a club that, really comes from a country that doesn't exist in the eyes of the UN.
It's a very interesting tale, and I think it's too complicated to get into here.
No, 100%.
They do tower over the rest of the Moldovan league in terms of their resources.
Yeah, so before you go on, 19 league titles since 2001, including 9 of the last 10 and 6 in a row from 2015 onwards. Where they get their finances and resources obviously very dodgy. We won't go into that, but yes, please go on.
It was just cool to see the celebrations and stuff on the sidelines. I mean, I don't think this is really a fairy tale from what I've read about the club, but it's still an upset. And to see upsets in European football when, the resources are so skewed. I mean, against a team like Shakhtar Donetsk, who has a really proud history in both the Champions League and Europa League, and continually on-sell great players to big clubs, and also Fred. It was great to see an upset.
I mean, think about it: Douglas Costa, Luis Adriano. They have a great history of cultivating Brazilian talent, especially, and selling them on.
Yeah, 100%. And it's always been that blend of the kind of Ukrainian national team players plus a whole bunch of Brazilians, and they seem to have this incredible scouting network that has kept them on top. When you venture far out into the eastern reaches of Europe, Ryan, you find all sorts of stories. And,
All sorts of crazy stories. But
some of them more savoury than others.
Yeah, 100%. But I'm excited to see how this small kind of like team goes up against Real Madrid, Inter Milan. Obviously not expected to make it out of the group, but I think politics and kind of that dark underbelly aside, it's nice to see small teams kind of feature on the biggest stage. And for me, that was a nice little moment. Sometimes you have to ignore the negative stuff and just enjoy football for what it is, really.
And lastly, I just love their badge. Team called Sheriff with a sheriff star. It's just, you know, it's the Wild East, actually.
Yeah, it's a branding dream, and I'm sure it was a big moment for so many of those players. You know, so many people dream of playing in the Champions League, but to actually get there is another thing entirely.